Assistant Administrator for Food for Peace and Voluntary Assistance, and as Assistant Administrator for Asia and the Near East. She also served as Deputy Director of the Office of African Affairs at the U.S. Information Agency. After 25 years in government service, in 1993 she became the Group Executive Vice President at the Bank of America and later President and CEO of the United States-Japan Foundation. Beginning in 1998, she shifted her focus to China, first becoming visiting professor at the Institute for International Relations and executive vice chairman of the American Studies Center at Peking University, and subsequently affiliating with Fudan University in Shanghai. A native of China, she grew up in San Francisco and earned a bachelor's degree in communications and public policy from the University of California, Berkeley, and a master's degree in government and East Asia Regional Studies from Harvard. She will be joined on the panel by Tom Battag, executive producer of Koppel on Discovery, Nicholas Lardy, senior fellow at the Peterson Institute for International Economics, and Alyssa Rubin, producer for Koppel on Discovery. Tom Battag brings a long and distinguished career to the Discovery Channel, including 5 years as executive producer of the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather and 14 years as executive producer of ABC News Nightline with Ted Koppel. He is the recipient of 30 Emmy Awards and numerous other awards for excellence in broadcast journalism. Nicholas Lardy joined the Peterson Institute on International Economics in 2003 from the Brookings Institution, where he was a senior fellow in the Foreign Policy Studies program. He was director of the Henry Jackson School of International Studies at the University of Washington and was also Frederick Frank Professor of International Trade and Finance at Yale University School of Management. He is an Asia specialist, especially on the Chinese economy, and holds a BA from the University of Wisconsin and a PhD from the University of Michigan, both in economics. Alyssa Rubin joins us also. Ms. Rubin is a producer of Koppel on Discovery and has focused on covering law and justice stories. She began her broadcast career in 1991 when she went to work for the political unit of WABC TV in New York and later San Francisco. In 2000, she joined ABC Network News and moved to ABC Washington-based Nightline as a producer. As a producer at Koppel on Discovery, Rubin hopes the program will become the place where viewers come to think about the big issues of our time that other outlets may write off as being too complicated or messy to cover. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our distinguished panel.
Good evening. When Heidi contacted me in China about moderating this program, I couldn't say no. I was absolutely delighted, particularly to learn that Ted Koppel and Tom Battag and their world-class team had spent a year in making this Discovery documentary on China's economy, filming for 8 months in the city of Chongqing, China's capital in World War II. The only thing was that I didn't realize I had double booked myself. I just left a welcome barbecue for 12 visiting Chinese professors, 4 of whom are from Sichuan, 2 of them from Chongqing. Never mind, it's worth it. What a series. I have been working for the past 10 years through the U.S.-China Education Trust in trying to help the Chinese understand the U.S. and vice versa. But I'm sure that this series will accomplish much more in helping Americans and people around the world better understand China, particularly the interdependent nature of the U.S.-China economic relationship. That is the power of Discovery and the media. Discovery Communications, after all, is the world's #1 nonfiction media company, reaching more than 1.5 billion subscribers in over 170 countries. I can tell you the U.S.-China Education Trust is no match. From what the documentary crew has been reported as saying, I believe they have been surprised by the China they found in Chongqing. I missed, Tom, what you said, but you can speak for yourself if I've misquoted you. And I'm really delighted to see you after such a long time. The last time we were working on Japan, the big story of the 80s. Obviously, today, the story has changed. I read that you had found it totally shocking that you had almost no government interference whatsoever in doing your film shoots. Apparently the only trouble was with an occasional policeman who was curious and asked you whether you had a permit. And you did. But you and your team chose your city well. I've gotten to know Chongqing through my professors. They really want to be known around the world as a major league city. And they figured that your film would put them on the map. So I think you got all the cooperation you needed and wanted. You said has had similar experiences as we have never experienced any interference in our programs in China in the last 10 years. And we work with 32 Chinese universities, plus think tanks and government agencies through our American Studies Network. But just the title alone, Republic of Capitalism, I could never have come up with that kind of a title. But what a title. Projects a modern-day China that may be the most business-friendly government in the world, I believe one of your interviewees said. Does that dispel stereotypes or not? Just let me ask you, how many of you here would have thought that a film or documentary with that title would be about China before you came here tonight? How many? Not too many. And I'm not sure even I would have. We are really fortunate tonight to have this expert panel. And Heidi has introduced them. We only have about 45 minutes to delve further into the issues that were raised by the series. How has capitalism changed the lives and values of the people in China? If the U.S. and China are now codependent, what does that mean for the United States as the global superpower? Is it really true to say that the U.S. would have an easier time entangling itself from Germany or France or from Europe than from the Chinese? Can either country get along without the other? So, without further ado, I do want to say one other word. The other panelists I also know. The only one I don't know is Miss Ellis. Melissa. Alyssa. But Nick Lardy, I think, is probably America's foremost expert on the Chinese economy. So, Tom?
Well, so you know that Nick, early on, was the first person we sat down with, and the number of times when I sent Nick an email and said, when can you set some time aside? We're lost. And Ted and I would get on the speakerphone and say, explain this to us, and he is a great explainer. So the big trick here is every time you ask a question, we're going to say Nick knows the answer. But Nick, encouraged us to do this, and I was at Tiananmen, and with Dan Rather reported, all the way through, and said I would never go back to China. I mean, I walked out just, terribly burned, and it's a different country. And I mean, I was truly shocked to go to Chongqing, and again, literally, there was never a minder, never anybody checking in on us, and the policemen were just kind of locals who said, should you be here? And once you showed them the papers or called the information office, and they said, no, they're okay. That was fine. So, I mean, it really wasn't interference. And central to that is Chongqing is this hugely developing city that desperately needs joint ventures, that wants to be known. It has this sense of Americans don't even know we're here, and we have to get you to come and invest in this place, and we want to show it to you. And so there was this just enormous eagerness to cooperate, but also on top of that, curiosity. Very few foreigners, could not have been more welcoming, more fun. It was just a great experience. Alyssa, why don't you add your sense of that, and then Nick can tell us what this was really all about.